Isabelle Thorne, the untouchable queen of our campus, was in the middle of a scandal. The Blackwood Ledger, the university's ruthless gossip blog, had exploded. The headline post featured a single photo, Isabelle in her bedroom at her off-campus condo, and in the background, hanging conspicuously on the back of a chair, was a man's jacket. Rumors ignited. Everyone was obsessively trying to figure out who the mystery man was. It didn't take long. The jacket was identified as a limited edition Saint Laurent bomber. And on the entire campus, only one person owned one, me. In the tiered lecture hall, every head snapped in my direction. Hundreds of pairs of eyes locked onto me, filled with a cocktail of shock, jealousy, and disdain. But underneath it all, there was a glimmer of something else, a grudging envy, a collective thought of, you lucky bastard actually pulled it off. I was frozen, completely blindsided. I shot to my feet, my voice shaking as I pointed at the projected image of the blog post on the screen. That's not mine. My jacket has a small tear on the collar. That one doesn't. Just as the words left my mouth, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Isabelle Thorne. Baby, you smell so good. I took the jacket. My world tilted. Another text came through, this time with a photo. It was a selfie of her, curled up on a sofa, wearing my jacket. A dark, intimate mark bloomed on her collarbone. You said you loved me like this last night. Now, get over here and fix this. Blood rushed to my head, and a cold dread washed over me. The students around me noticed my deathly pale face, and, assuming it was guilt, broke into a wave of snickering. The gray-haired professor, a man well into his 60s, adjusted his glasses and slammed his textbook on the lectern. Caleb Hayes, perhaps you can answer the question. The room fell silent. Everyone was waiting for the punchline, for me to utterly humiliate myself. I could see the subtle tilt of dozens of phone cameras pointed in my direction. My best friend, Leo, nudged me hard with his elbow, mouthing exaggeratedly, "Dude, you actually landed the Ice Queen?" My mind was a roaring vacuum. I couldn't hear a single word. The professor's patience wore thin. He waved a dismissive hand. "Get out. Go cool off." I fled the lecture hall, as if escaping a fire, the dam of suppressed laughter breaking behind me in a roaring flood of mockery and gossip. What's he pretending for? He got everything he wanted, and now he's playing the victim. Seriously, landing Isabelle Thorne? He must have the luck of the gods. Man, it's disgusting. I leaned against the cold hallway wall, my hands shaking as I checked the sender's name again. It was really her. I called her number. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice, lazy and laced with a hint of a pout, drifted through the phone. "You have 10 minutes. If you're not here, I'm posting the pictures of us that are much more intimate." "Isabelle, what the hell are you doing?" I hissed, keeping my voice low. She let out a soft, sweet laugh that sounded disturbingly unhinged. "I miss you, baby. The clock is ticking." She hung up. I stared at my phone as a 10-minute countdown timer she'd started appeared on my screen. I felt trapped in an invisible net pulled tight. Humiliation, anger, and fear warred within me. But in the end, all that was left was a helpless surrender. Resigned, I started running toward her off-campus condo. I had no idea that this elaborate love affair, orchestrated entirely by her, was just the beginning. I don't know why I had a spare key to her condo. It was just there on my keychain, nestled among my other keys, as if it had always belonged. I used it to unlock the door. In the foyer, a scent hit me, a mixture of my own laundry detergent and her cool, clean fragrance. She was just like in the picture, lounging on the sofa, wearing my oversized bomber jacket. Her legs were bare, the hem of the jacket just barely grazing the tops of her thighs, revealing a breathtaking expanse of pale skin. She heard the door open and slowly lifted her head, her gaze reproachful. "You're 23 seconds late." My chest heaved. "Isabelle, why are you doing this? Did you steal my jacket?" She acted as if she hadn't heard me. She padded toward me on bare feet and tilted her head up to look at me. "A minute ago, in front of all those people, you said you didn't know me." Her voice was a whisper, but it made the hair on my arm stand up. I tried to explain. I was just trying to clarify that the jacket in the photo wasn't mine. "Not yours." She suddenly smiled, pointing a delicate finger at the dark red mark on her collarbone. "Then what about this? Is this fake, too?" I stared at the mark, my mind a complete blank. I had absolutely no memory of it. I had spent last night in my dorm room. It was impossible. She shoved me against the wall, planting her hands on either side of my head, trapping me between her body and the cool plaster. She rose on her toes, her warm breath ghosting across my ear, sending a jolt through my entire body. "That's not what you said last night when you were holding me. You said my scent was your favorite thing in the world." Her intoxicating fragrance enveloped me, aggressive and overwhelming. My heart hammered against my ribs, completely out of control. I desperately searched my memory, but there was nothing there beyond the sound of Leo's snoring in the bunk across from me. Seeing my bewildered expression, she smiled again. It was the smile of a child who had just pulled off a perfect prank, tinged with a sick, possessive satisfaction. "From now on, you're mine," she declared. "Play the part of my boyfriend, or else." She pulled out her phone and opened her photo gallery. It was filled with pictures of me. Candid shots. Me sleeping in the library, playing basketball on the court, eating in the dining hall. There was even a picture of me from moments ago, looking panicked and lost in the lecture hall. A cold dread settled in my stomach. How long had she been watching me? Just then, my eyes caught a detail. The mark on her collarbone. Its edges were an unnatural, irritated red. It looked less like a hickey and more like an allergic reaction, something pinched and bruised into her skin. It wasn't a kiss at all. A massive question bloomed in my mind. Before I could speak, she took my phone from my hand and unlocked it with practiced ease. Right in front of me, she deleted our call history and changed her contact name to My Baby. After she was done, she tossed the phone back into my chest. "Good boy. Go home and wait for me to text you." With that, she turned, walked back to the sofa, and picked up a thick textbook, becoming the focused, diligent student once more. It was as if the intense, possessive woman from a moment ago had never existed. I clutched my phone, the glaring contact name burning into my eyes. I felt like a puppet, my strings being pulled by an expert manipulator. Powerless and utterly absurd. When I got back to my dorm, I was met with a three-man interrogation. Leo threw his arm around my neck, shaking me vigorously. "Spill it. When did you conquer our untouchable ice queen? You got her stashed away in some secret love nest, haven't you?" My other two roommates swarmed me, talking over each other. "Caleb, not cool, man. Keeping something this huge from us. So, is she as intense as she looks in the pictures?" My head was pounding. I could only offer a vague excuse. "We're just friends." "Friends," Leo yelled dramatically. "Friend, wear your jacket and let you take the fall for a campus-wide scandal? Do I look like an idiot to you?" I had no defense, so I played dead. Soon after, a new post was pinned to the top of the Blackwood Ledger. The title was in bold, red font. An investigation into the man who conquered Isabelle Thorne. Prince Charming or professional gold digger. The main post was a detailed analysis of my background. Middle-class family, average grades, decent but not movie star looks. Compared to a goddess like Isabelle, I was nothing. The verdict was unanimous. I, Caleb Hayes, was 100% a kept man. A user with the handle Grayson Vance, who everyone knew was Grayson Vance from the business school, posted a real name comment dripping with contempt. "It's just a jacket. Isabelle is just playing with him. Some toad shouldn't get his hopes up. I'll give 10 grand to whoever get a picture of her dumping his pathetic ass." A flood of replies tagged me, full of ridicule. $10,000? Damn, Grayson's generous. I bet he doesn't even last a week. A toad lusting after a swan. You should take a good look in the mirror. Can't wait for the breakup live stream. Grayson Vance. I knew him. A trust fund kid, one of Isabelle's most obsessive admirers, who used his family's money to throw his weight around campus. I shut off my phone, unwilling to read any more of the filth. But reality was far crueler than the internet. When I went to the dining hall for dinner, nearly everyone pointed and whispered, "Look, that's him, the gold digger. He's not even that good looking. What does Isabelle Thorne see in him? Maybe he's good at other things." A wave of sleazy laughter followed. I grabbed my tray and found a seat in the corner. I'd barely taken 2 bites when a figure carrying a tray accidentally slammed into me, spilling soup and sauce all over my shirt. The guy was one of Grayson's lackeys. Without even looking at me, he spoke in a snide, mocking tone. "Oh, sorry there, Caleb. Is it hard work being a kept man? Need me to clean that up for you?" He smirked, picking up a greasy rag from a nearby cart and making a move to wipe it on me. I clenched my jaw, fighting back a surge of rage, and grabbed his wrist. Get lost. Just as I was about to lose it, my phone buzzed. It was Isabelle. "They're bullying my baby. I'm not happy." Before I could even process her text, my phone buzzed again. Leo shoved his phone in my face, the screen showing the latest update on the Blackwood Ledger. Isabelle's account, which had been dormant for years, had just replied to Grayson's thread. Her comment was only 2 sentences long. "He's my man. Who are you to judge? And by the way, we had a great time last night." The entire site crashed. Everyone went insane. The guy who'd bumped into me went pale, then red, then scrambled away without another word. The whispers around me died down, but the stares that followed me were now more complicated than ever. My phone vibrated one last time. It was a direct message from Grayson Vance. A string of obscene insults, followed by a single blood-red threat. Hayes, you're dead. I'm going to ruin you. Staring at the message, I realized for the first time that this was far more complicated than I could have ever imagined. Isabelle's defense was like a shot of adrenaline, but it was also another heavy link in the chain she was wrapping around me. What did she possibly want from me? Grayson's retaliation came faster and more directly than I expected. The next afternoon, he cornered me outside the Humanities building. He had 7 or 8 of his cronies with him, all of them looking for a fight. A crowd of students quickly formed a circle, phones out, ready to capture the drama. Hayes. Grayson stepped forward, a smug grin on his face. I'm going to give you a chance. He pulled a thick stack of cash from his designer backpack and threw it in my face. Leave, Isabelle, and this is all yours. The $100 bills scattered across the ground like grotesque confetti. The sharp edge of a bill sliced my cheek, a stinging pain that was nothing compared to the hot surge of humiliation. The crowd gasped. The sound of phone shutters was like a swarm of insects. Holy shit, he's just making it rain on him. That's got to be like 10 grand, right? I'd take the money and run. The gold digger doesn't deserve her anyway. Taking the cash is the right thing to do. I didn't bend to pick up a single bill. I ignored the sting on my face and just stared at him, my voice cold. You think that's all Isabelle is worth? My words hit their mark. Grayson's face darkened. You really want to do this the hard way? You son of a bitch? He raised his fist, ready to swing. Just then, a voice as cold and sharp as ice cut through the air from the edge of the crowd. Grayson, are you trying to touch what's mine? The sea of students parted for her. Isabelle walked through. She was wearing a simple white dress, her long hair falling over her shoulders. No makeup, yet she was still breathtakingly beautiful. Her presence was electric, like a queen arriving in her court. She didn't even glance at Grayson. She walked straight to me. Pulling a wet wipe from her purse, she gently dabbed at the cut on my cheek where the money had hit me. Her fingertips were cool, but I felt a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in them. Her eyes were filled with a fierce, protective anger. Only after she finished did she turn to face Grayson, her expression glacial. First, his name is Caleb, not him. Second, he's mine. You don't have the right to lay a single finger on him. And third, she paused, her voice dropping even colder. If there's a next time, I can't guarantee that the Vance Corporation's latest merger will go through so smoothly. Grayson's face turned a sickly shade of gray. His lips trembled, but he couldn't form a single word of protest. The Thorne family's power was on a completely different level than his. In front of everyone, Isabelle took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. Her hand was soft and cool. She held our joined hands up for everyone to see, her voice clear and unwavering. Let's go, Caleb. I'll make you dinner. As the entire crowd stood there, frozen in shock, she led me away. I could feel countless stares burning into my back like needles. But this time, I felt strangely calm. The moment we rounded the corner of the building, out of sight, she immediately dropped my hand and her icy mask snapped back into place. She kept her face turned away, but I could clearly see that the tips of her ears were bright red. Stay away from Grayson from now on, she said curtly, then quickened her pace and walked ahead. Watching her hurried retreat, I felt something shift inside me. A soft, unexpected tap against the walls I had built around my heart. It was infuriatingly, undeniably, the first stirrings of affection. Under Isabelle's coercion, I became a permanent fixture at her condo. The official role was playing boyfriend, but it felt more like being her exclusive butler. I cooked for her, cleaned for her, and listened to her explain complex academic theories that went completely over my head. Our relationship settled into a strange, unsettling equilibrium. She remained dominant and possessive, always speaking to me in commands. But occasionally, I'd catch a glimpse of a fragile dependence beneath her cold exterior. She would fall asleep with her head on my shoulder while I was reading. She would stubbornly steal my freshly washed white t-shirts to wear as pajamas. I slowly realized I was getting used to her presence, terrifyingly used to it. One day, while cleaning her condo, I caught a faint, familiar smell of medicinal herbs. It was subtle, but it triggered a blurred flash of a memory. A dark room, the silhouette of Isabelle crying, a gleaming hypodermic needle. The image was gone before I could grasp it, but the seed of suspicion it planted grew into a tangled vine. That night, maybe I wasn't drunk. Maybe I was drugged. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I began to discreetly observe her apartment, searching for clues. Finally, tucked away in the deepest corner of her bookshelf, I found an ornate wooden box secured with a small brass lock. I tested the waters. What's this? Isabelle, who had been reading, looked up. Her expression instantly became guarded and cold. Don't touch that. The more nervous she was, the more certain I became that the box held a crucial secret. I started using my connections through Leo to ask around about Isabelle's past. Leo knew everyone, and it didn't take long for him to get back to me. Dude, so I heard. Isabelle Thorne took a semester off back in high school. The rumor is she was really, really sick. A leave of absence? An illness? Did it have anything to do with the images flashing in my mind? Isabelle seemed to sense my snooping. Her surveillance of me became even more intense. She forced me to install a GPS tracking app on my phone so she could monitor my location at all times. She would video call me without warning, demanding to know where I was. Baby, where are you? Who are you talking to? Pan the camera around. Let me see. The suffocating feeling of being constantly watched was driving me to the brink. I finally confronted her. Isabelle, do you even see me as a human being? She just stared at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, obsessive fear that I couldn't comprehend. I'm just afraid you'll run away. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally, caught in this tug-of-war of possession and submission. I wanted to escape, but I was beginning to realize I was already in too deep. My feelings for her were becoming a tangled mess. Was it resentment? Helplessness? Or something else? A sympathy and affection I didn't dare admit, even to myself. Grayson's revenge came again, this time in a way I never saw coming. Using an anonymous account, he posted a forged medical document on the Blackwood Ledger. It was a psychiatric evaluation. Isabelle Thorne's name was at the top, and the diagnosis was listed as severe paranoid personality disorder. The post was pure incitement, painting Isabelle as a dangerous, mentally unstable predator and me, Caleb Hayes, as her victim, controlled through manipulation and abuse. The tide of public opinion turned overnight. The same people who had envied my position as a gold digger now pitted me. That's horrible. So he's being stalked by a psycho. No wonder her behavior is so extreme. She's actually sick in the head. Caleb needs to get out of there. People like that can be violent. Worse, the scandal reached Isabelle's parents, who lived abroad. They called her, screaming, and demanded she immediately take a leave of absence and fly overseas for treatment. I called Isabelle frantically, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I sprinted to her condo. The door was locked from the inside. I threw my entire weight against it until the lock splintered and the door flew open. The scene inside made my heart stop. The apartment was destroyed. Books, sketches, and shattered glass littered the floor. It looked like a hurricane had torn through it. I ran into the bedroom and found her curled in a corner. She was clutching the jacket she had stolen from me, her entire body trembling. She looked like a tiny, abandoned kitten. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes vacant and devoid of their usual fire. It was the first time I had ever seen her so completely broken. The imperious queen, the possessive manipulator, all of it was gone. In her place was just a helpless, terrified girl. When she saw me, a flicker of light returned to her empty eyes. A second later, the tears came in a fresh torrent. She stumbled toward me and threw her arms around me, clinging to me as if I were the last piece of driftwood in a raging sea. Don't go. Caleb, please don't leave me. Her voice was choked with sobs and raw fear. Every word was a needle, piercing my heart. A sharp, unfamiliar pain shot through my chest. For the first time, I hugged her back. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her small, frail body into mine, and gently stroked her back. I'm not going anywhere, I said, my voice so soft and steady it surprised even me. I'm right here. Don't be afraid. Gradually, her sobs subsided. She eventually cried herself to sleep in my arms. Even in her dreams, her brow was furrowed, and she unconsciously murmured my name. Caleb, don't leave. I looked down at her unguarded face, pale and tear-stained. And in that moment, I made a decision. It didn't matter what the truth of that night was. It didn't matter what her original motive for approaching me had been. This time, it was my turn to protect her. Grayson Vance and his forged documents, the online mob that had slandered her, and her parents who only knew how to solve problems with money and control. I wouldn't let any of them get away with it. I gently laid Isabelle on her bed and pulled the covers over her. Then, I walked back into the living room, reached into the most hidden compartment of my backpack, and pulled out a sleek, private cell phone I hadn't touched in months. The phone powered on, the screen lighting up with an interface completely different from my regular device. I dialed a number I knew by heart. The call was answered almost immediately. A respectful voice came through the line. Mr. Hayes, Jr., it's good to hear from you, sir. My voice was stripped of its usual warmth, leaving only a cold, deadly calm. Mr. Wallace, I need you to run check on someone. Grayson Vance from the business school, and his family's company, Vance Corporation. I want everything. Public records, private dirt, anything that's on the books, and anything that isn't. I want it all before sunrise. Of course, sir. After hanging up, I opened a social media app and logged into an old dormant account. The username was simple, a single letter, H, and the profile picture was a solid black square. But its follower count was a staggering 8 figures. The bio read, tech analyst, angel investor. Overnight, the world turned upside down. By morning, an anonymous email containing irrefutable proof of Vance Corporation's tax evasion and severe safety violations across multiple projects had been delivered to every major regulatory agency and news outlet on the East Coast. A comprehensive file detailing Grayson Vance's scheme to forge medical records and maliciously slander Isabelle Thorne online, complete with a formal notice from one of New York's top law firms, was sent to the university's board and national media platforms. And my account, after 6 months of silence, posted its first update. It was a clear, meticulously detailed article laying out the entire timeline of events, exposing the actions of Grayson Vance and his family for all to see. At the end of the article, I attached a single, censored photo. In it, I stood in the middle, flanked by the founder of the country's biggest tech giant on my left and a legendary titan of industry on my right. Though their faces were blurred, their iconic builds and bespoke suits were unmistakable. My caption was nonchalant. My father always taught me to keep a low profile, but I'm learning that sometimes being too quiet just gets you bitten by rabid dogs. The narrative didn't just shift, it shattered. Vance Corp's stock plummeted the second the market opened. Grayson Vance became a pariah overnight. On the Blackwood ledger, the students who had mocked me and then pitted me were left completely stunned. Holy shit, Caleb Hayes is the real deal? The secret heir? He was playing the long game. That's not a gold digger. That's a goddamn emperor. Grayson didn't just step on a landmine. He stepped on a nuke. Leo burst into my dorm room, phone in hand, his jaw practically on the floor. He pointed from the screen to me, stammering, "Say, Caleb. Dude, you were the real powerhouse this whole time." I smiled and put my phone away. I've been playing the part of the sheep for a long time. It was time to let the wolf out for some air. The university's disciplinary action was swift. Grayson was suspended indefinitely, with a formal reprimand placed on his permanent record. His father, the once arrogant chairman of Vance Corp, showed up at my dorm with Grayson in tow, bearing extravagant gifts and begging to apologize. I had the doors shut in their faces. I returned to the condo to find Isabelle awake. She was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through the news on her phone, her expression unreadable. She looked up at me, her eyes a deep, complex ocean of emotion. "You," she began, but the words seemed to fail her. I walked over to her and gently tousled her hair. "You're awake. Hungry? I'll make you something to eat." It was as if the person who had just orchestrated a corporate takedown and upended the entire campus wasn't me at all. I made breakfast, but Isabelle barely touched it. She just watched me, her gaze filled with a searching curiosity that was almost overflowing. After a long silence, she stood up. "Caleb, come with me." She led me up a flight of stairs to an attic I'd never entered before. When she opened the door, the scent of oil paints and canvas washed over me. The attic was an art studio. The walls, the easels, every available surface was covered in paintings. And every single painting was of the same person. Me. There I was leaping for a jump shot on the basketball court, my jersey soaked with sweat, outlining the muscles of my back. There I was, asleep by a window in the library, sunlight tracing the line of my jaw, my eyelashes casting soft shadows on my cheek. There I was, frowning impatiently while waiting in line at the dining hall. Each portrait was stunningly lifelike, a perfect slice of a moment frozen in time. I stared at the hundreds of versions of myself, completely speechless. Isabelle walked to one of the paintings and lightly traced the outline of my face on the canvas. I was kidnapped my sophomore year of high school. Her voice was a soft whisper, but it landed like a thunderclap in the quiet room. They locked me in a dark storage unit for 3 days. After that, I developed severe PTSD. I was terrified of the dark, of being alone. I couldn't trust anyone. Her voice began to tremble. I took a semester off for therapy, but nothing worked. Then I came back to school, transferred to your district. She turned to face me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. That day, it was raining and I dropped all my books. Everyone just walked around me. But you stopped. You helped me pick up every single one. You even smiled at me and said, "Don't worry, I got you." I searched my memory and found a vague recollection of the event. It was just a small, thoughtless act of kindness on my part. You were the first light that broke through my darkness. From that day on, I started watching you. The way you played basketball, the way you studied, the way you laughed with your friends. You became my medicine. I started painting you. It was the only time my mind was ever quiet. She led me to the small wooden box I had discovered before and unlocked it with a tiny key. Inside, there were no jewels or treasures. There was only an old fountain pen I thought I'd lost years ago, a few crumpled sheets of my math scratch paper, and a candid photo of me from freshman orientation, sunburned and awkward. All of it was my forgotten junk. But to her, they were precious relics, collected and cherished. My heart was seized by an immense, aching tenderness. So, that night, I started my voice hoarse. That night, my parents were trying to force me to go abroad again, and my panic attacks came back. I went up to the roof. I was going to end it, but you found me. You saved me. You stayed with me on that rooftop all night, telling me stupid jokes and singing off-key. When the sun started to come up, I got scared. I was terrified that, like everyone else, you would leave me as soon as the sun rose and never come back. So, tears streamed down her face as she pulled a small, empty syringe from her pocket. I injected you with a sedative. I just wanted you to stay with me a little longer. The jacket, I snuck back and took it from your dorm balcony the next day. The mark on my neck, I did it to myself. I was so scared, Caleb. I just wanted an excuse, any excuse, to bind you to me forever. The jacket incident was a desperate gamble. She was betting that I wouldn't have the heart to truly push her away. The truth was finally out. There was no betrayal, no cruel manipulation. There was only a clumsy, obsessive, and heartbreakingly profound love. I stepped forward and cupped her cold face in my hands, gently brushing away her tears with my thumbs. You idiot, I murmured. I lowered my head and captured her trembling lips with mine. Next time, you don't have to go to so much trouble, I whispered against her mouth. If you want me by your side, just tell me. I'm not going anywhere. We began to date for real. It was no longer her one-sided control and my passive acceptance, but a mutual dependence and affection. I took Isabelle to see the best therapist in the country. I stood by her, helping her confront the past she had been too afraid to touch. With my encouragement and support, she slowly began to emerge from the shadows. Her possessiveness didn't vanish, but it transformed. What was once a suffocating need for control softened into a sweet, playful jealousy. She would still get jealous, still check up on me, but her methods were far more adorable. Baby, who was that freshman you were talking to in the library today? You look so happy. As punishment, you have to kiss me 10 times. No, 100. She would imperiously declare that every white dress shirt in my closet now belonged to her. Then, under my exasperated gaze, she would prance around the room in one of my shirts, looking utterly pleased with herself. I went public with my family background, and the whispers and stares stopped for good. Isabelle and I became Blackwood University's undisputed power couple, the object of everyone's envy. I took her to meet my family. My warm, open-minded parents adored this girl who was so cool on the outside, but so incredibly soft on the inside. My mother took her hands, her voice full of compassion. You're our family now, dear. No one will ever hurt you again. Isabelle's eyes welled with tears. It was the first time I had ever seen her show that vulnerable smile to anyone but me. With my encouragement, she picked up her paintbrushes again and, a year later, held her first solo exhibition at a top gallery in Soho. The theme of the show was light. On display were over 1,000 portraits she had painted of me. The final piece in the exhibition was a new painting. It was no longer just me. It was the two of us, a view from behind, holding hands tightly as we walked into a sun-drenched landscape. Next to the painting was a small plaque with a single line of text. You are my light and my entire world. The exhibition was a sensation. The art world was captivated by her talent and by the fierce, palpable love that radiated from every canvas. To celebrate her success, I took her on a trip to a romantic island in the Caribbean. That night, under a blanket of stars, with the sound of the waves crashing on the shore, our relationship reached its most physical, intimate peak. Beneath me, her eyes were hazy with pleasure and tears, and she whispered my name over and over again. Caleb, Caleb. I kissed her, making her a promise. Isabelle, I will always be by your side. It was the happiest time of my life. I thought our future would be an endless continuation of this perfect bliss. But I had forgotten that one final test was still waiting for us. Isabelle's parents returned from abroad. They contacted me directly, arranging a meeting at an exclusive private club in New York City. Without Isabelle, in the private room, Her distinguished father and immaculately preserved mother sat across from me, studying me with cold, appraising eyes. "Caleb Hayes, is it? Our Isabelle has told us all about you." Isabelle's mother spoke first, her tone dripping with condescension. "Name your price. How much will it take for you to leave her?" She slid a blank check across the polished mahogany table. "As long as the number is reasonable, we are prepared to accommodate you." I looked at the check and I smiled. I politely pushed it back toward her. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, I believe you may have a slight misunderstanding about me. Or rather, about the Hayes family." I took out my phone and dialed Mr. Wallace and put the call on speaker. "Mr. Wallace, could you please connect me to my father?" A moment later, my father's deep, steady voice came through the phone. "You rascal. Finally decide to call your old man." I said, "Dad, I'm here talking things over with Mr. Thorne." Isabelle's father, Julian Thorne, chairman of the Thorne Corporation, visibly flinched when he heard how I addressed my father. He asked tentatively, "A Hayes?" My father laughed on the other end of the line. "Julian, my friend, it's me, Arthur Hayes. My boy could be a handful. My apologies for any trouble he's caused. If he's been mistreating your precious daughter, you have my full permission to set him straight." The color drained from Julian Thorne's face. The name Arthur Hayes, he knew exactly what that name meant in the business world. The Thornes were certainly wealthy, but compared to the colossal entity that was the Hayes family, they were small time. His wife's arrogance evaporated, replaced by a flustered discomfort. The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. After a long silence, Julian Thorne spoke again, his tone still rigid. "Well, Arthur's son, since we're all being direct, let's be clear. We admit your family background is impeccable, but you know Isabelle's condition. Her illness. We don't want her to be a burden on you, nor do we want the future of the Hayes family tied to a woman with psychological issues." That last sentence ignited my fury. "Mr. Thorne," I said, dropping all pretense of politeness, my voice turning to ice. "First, Isabelle is not ill. She was hurt, and she is healing. Second, she is not a burden. She is my life. And third, her future is hers to decide, not a bargaining chip for a business alliance or a sacrifice for your family's public image." Julian Thorne's face turned purple with rage. "Insolent. How dare you speak to me like that? I'm merely stating the facts." The meeting ended disastrously. I had assumed that revealing my identity and my unwavering stance would make them back down, but I underestimated the depth of their ingrained, pathological need for control. The next day, I couldn't reach Isabelle. Her phone was off, and her condo was empty. A terrible sense of foreboding washed over me. I immediately had Mr. Wallace investigate. The news came back quickly. Isabelle had been put under house arrest by her parents. They had confiscated her phone and all her devices, processed her withdrawal from the university, and booked her on the next flight to a private sanatorium in Switzerland. The flight was for 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I clenched my fists, my knuckles turning white. I knew I didn't just have to get Isabelle back. I had to completely dismantle her parents' twisted logic that they could control her life for her own good. I made a bold decision. I was under the airport to get her. The next afternoon, at the private VIP terminal of the international airport, I walked in with Mr. Wallace and a dozen security personnel in black suits. Julian and his wife were on either side of Isabelle, practically marching her toward the gate, with 2 of their own bodyguards flanking them. Isabelle was wearing a white dress, her face pale and her eyes completely empty, like a doll whose soul had been removed. The moment she saw me, that emptiness in her eyes exploded with a brilliant light. "Caleb!" she cried out, trying to run to me, but her parents held her fast. Julian Thorne's face contorted in fury when he saw my entourage. "Caleb Hayes, what is the meaning of this? This is an open provocation of the Thorne family." I ignored him. I walked straight to Isabelle, pulled her from their grasp, and sheltered her behind me. I met Julian's furious gaze, my voice calm, but unyielding. "I'm not here to provoke anyone. I'm here to pick up my wife and our child." The statement dropped like a bomb in the quiet terminal. Everyone froze. Julian and his wife stared, dumbfounded. Even Isabelle's eyes widened in disbelief, her hand instinctively going to her flat stomach. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded lab report, and handed it to Julian Thorne. It was a confirmation of pregnancy. I had taken Isabelle for a routine checkup a few weeks ago, and the doctor had quietly given me the results. She'd said Isabelle was recovering remarkably well under my care, but her recent fatigue and nausea might be something else. I'd had her run the tests, just in case. I never imagined I would need them like this. I looked at the utterly stunned couple and calmly delivered the final blow. Isabelle has been tired and losing her appetite lately. I took her to the doctor. She's 3 weeks along. The doctor said that expectant mothers must avoid stress in the first trimester. They need absolute peace and quiet. I don't believe a sanatorium in Switzerland is a suitable environment for a pregnant woman. Do you? My voice was quiet, but every word was a steel blade. Julian Thorne stared at the black and white report, his hand trembling. He wanted to rage, but he had no ground to stand on. I turned away from them and, in front of everyone, dropped to one knee before Isabelle. From my pocket, I produced the ring I had been carrying for months. It was a custom design I had commissioned with a bonus for my very first successful investment, one of a kind. I looked up at the girl I loved, tears streaming down her face, and my voice was softer than I had ever heard it. Isabelle Thorne, I'm sorry this is so rushed, and it's not very romantic, but I can't wait another second. Will you marry me? From now on, I will be your shield against all the storms and all the darkness. Let me be the one to protect you. Isabelle covered her mouth, tears falling like pearls. She was crying and laughing at the same time as she nodded her head vigorously. Yes, I will. I slid the ring on her finger, stood, and pulled her into a fierce embrace. At that exact moment, the final boarding call for the flight to Switzerland echoed through the terminal. A perfectly timed, ironic punctuation mark on the end of a ridiculous farce. Julian and his wife stood there, their faces ashen. They had lost. Ultimately, Isabelle's parents relented. Perhaps the trump card of a grandchild was too powerful to ignore, or perhaps, for the first time in years, they saw a genuine, heartfelt smile on their daughter's face and recognized their own mistakes. They began to reflect, to try to understand her rather than control her. Our wedding was the event of the season in New York. Everyone who was anyone was there. Leo was my best man and cried harder than I did during the ceremony. He hugged me, sobbing, "Caleb, you have to be happy, man, or all those years you spent pretending to be a poor college kid will have been for nothing." I laughed and punched him lightly on the shoulder. At the reception, I stood and addressed our guests, my eyes on my new bride. Many people have said that I was the light that entered Isabelle's world. But the truth is, she was my salvation. It was she, with her clumsy, fiery, all-consuming love, who taught me how to truly love another person. Isabelle, sitting at the head table, was a beautiful, crying mess. After we were married, with the constant support of my family and me, Isabelle's recovery was nearly complete. She became bright and confident, even taking an active role in her family's business and revealing a shocking aptitude for it. But her possessiveness toward me never faded. It just melted into the sweet, intimate games that only we understood. She would tie my neckties into a special, complex knot that only she knew how to undo. "That's my brand," she would say. "No one else is allowed to touch it." She would secretly embroider a tiny, almost invisible eye on the inside cuff of every one of my white dress shirts. "This way," she'd explained, "no matter where you go, it's like I'm always with you." 10 months later, Isabelle gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She had my eyes and her mother's mouth. The day our daughter was born, Isabelle held my hand, looked at the tiny baby in the bassinet, and her eyes grew misty. "Baby," she whispered, "now I have 2 people to protect." I leaned down and kissed her forehead. "No," I said softly, "now we have 1 precious person to protect together." A few years later, on a warm afternoon, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our home. I was on the living room floor, building a block tower with our daughter, who was just beginning to babble. Isabelle was leaning against my shoulder, flipping through a thick photo album. It was filled with pictures from the moment we met until now, her secret snapshots of me, my candid shots of her. She turned to the last page. It held a new photograph. In it, the limited edition Saint Laurent bomber jacket, the one that had started it all, was professionally mounted in a shadow box frame. It hung in the most prominent spot in our walk-in closet. Beneath the photo, in Isabelle's elegant handwriting, was a short inscription. "Thank you for stealing my heart." I looked at the picture and smiled. I leaned down and kissed my daughter's soft cheek, then turned my head and kissed my wife's lips. A quiet life, an eternal love. This life, with them, was more than enough.